Mehmet Oz and his campaign against Democratic contender John Fetterman for a Senate seat in Pennsylvania continues to fail. Just a disaster. And the latest round of failure has to do with the fact that the Oz campaign thought it was a great idea to attack Fetterman over the fact that he had a stroke recently. So a spokesperson with the Oz campaign, Alex Griffing, said this: if John Fetterman had ever eaten a vegetable in his life, then maybe he wouldn't have had a major stroke and wouldn't be in a position of having to lie about it constantly, Tripp said, taking a jab at Fetterman, who suffered a stroke days ahead of winning the Democratic primary in May. And so, I'm sorry, Alex Griffing is the Mediaite reporter. Tripp is the individual who is speaking out against Fetterman in a pretty disgusting way. And so what got Tripp so upset? Why is Dr. Oz's campaign so upset? It's because Fetterman really knows how to dunk and he knows how to do it online. And he certainly did it in response to Oz's now notorious crudité video. And so Fetterman had written on Twitter, in Pennsylvania, we call this a veggie tray, right? Because Dr. Oz referred to it as a crudité, which is not language that most people are familiar with, right? It's very fancy language for a veggie tray. So nonetheless, Oz did not get a lot of positive feedback when that statement about Fetterman's stroke came out. Fetterman says, I had a stroke, I survived it. I'm truly so grateful to still be here today. I know politics can be nasty, but even then I could never imagine ridiculing someone over their health challenges. And apparently, Jake Tapper was even disgusted by these statements and said something about it in a recent segment of his show. Let's take a look at that.
The communications director for Dr. Oz said, if John Fetterman had ever eaten a vegetable in his life, this is the reference to the crudité scandal, then maybe he wouldn't have had a major stroke and wouldn't be in a position of having to lie about it constantly. You know, I'm from Pennsylvania, and I think this is either man's race, really, honestly. But like, that's kind of nasty.
Yeah, I mean, I've been covering politics for about a decade now, and that's a new level of nastiness that we don't usually see in Senate races. You know, I think when Trump came on the landscape, though, these politics really changed, and these people get in the gutter and just kind of it can get really ugly.
I mean, it is an odd man's race, right, John? But what Oz said, it was nasty, was nasty. Like, I like the admission from Tapper that Oz said something or his campaign said something nasty, but like the needless dig at Fetterman.
Yeah,
but you can
I think he said it was either man's race. But what he did, like, he's going to say it's nasty. He has to admit it's nasty, but that would be critiquing one of the candidates, which is like suspicious. It's dangerously near taking a side, even though it's the most obvious thing. You have to take a side on this. It's terrible to say what he said. So he has to throw, I mean, it could be anybody. Like, I don't know, I don't care. I'm not a thinking human person. I'm obsessed with politics. My entire career is politics, but I can't choose between the two. It's all the same, really. What a weird position to hold. He prefers one of the two.
But I get it. I mean, Brian Stelter just got fired from CNN, and it's because their new owner wants to push CNN to a right-wing position. So I kind of get Tapper's panicky statement there, but I'm glad you clarified because I heard odd, but I think you're right. Anyway,
yeah, well, I'm not sure, but anyway, yeah, no, it's reprehensible. It could potentially help, like, amongst some conservatives. Well, why? Because it's such an awful thing. Yeah, because it's awful. Fetterman is a Democrat, thus he is, for many of those Republicans, literally a baby eater. Like, that's what millions of conservatives think. At the very least, he's a rabid commie. And so there are no lines whatsoever. There's no like just going too far. There's no like, well, you know, I went to church growing up, so there's supposed to be lines we don't. No, they want absolute vicious attacks. And so maybe that'll help him amongst some. But at large, how many millions of people in Pennsylvania do we think have had strokes? Many of them. I was just looking at stats, and they said if you're over 25 right now, your chance of having a stroke in your life is at least 1 in 4. They said every 40 seconds, someone in the US has a stroke, and every 3.5 minutes, somebody dies from a stroke.
Jesus.
It is a leading cause of death. amongst Americans. Now, it's not, as with everything else in America, it's not distributed equally across our population. Black Americans are far more likely to have and die from strokes than white Americans. And so he's offending all sorts of different people that he would like to vote for him. There are many conservatives who will see that they have had strokes, or at the very least, they know people who've had strokes, who've suffered mobility issues following strokes, cognitive issues following strokes, financial burdens, bankruptcy, medical bankruptcy following strokes. And that's what he thinks he's gonna earn points on. He's such a terrible candidate.
He's awful. And yeah, I mean, that is the best point in regard to why there's backlash, right? I mean, consider what you're saying to an unintended audience. Like, you're unintentionally, I assume, insulting people that you're trying to persuade to vote for you. And you're blaming them for the condition as well, right? Like, so with Fetterman accusing him of having like a super unhealthy lifestyle, there are all sorts of hereditary issues that could lead to a stroke. So insulting people like that is pretty disgusting. And so I'm not really surprised by the backlash. I will say, I think it's pretty clear that Fetterman is gonna win, considering how well he's doing in the polls. He has a massive lead over Oz. So why do we cover this story so often? Because it's like one of the few places I find solace in the news cycle. It's just so fun to see an excellent Democratic candidate stomp on a terrible Republican candidate, and means that we have at least something positive to look forward to electorally. So there you have it.
Yeah, and look, I feel the same way in that it's good to have a race that seemed like it might go the other way, where the Democrat is actually leading. That's nice. To have a candidate who we, seemingly would agree with on a lot of issues actually be the candidate. That's amazing. To have a candidate who was chosen for largely the same reasons that Donald Trump was, a massive grifter that should send up warning signs and red flags to literally any other thinking human. But the Republicans have been trained not to be able to see any of that, and to in fact prefer someone who's gonna con them, someone who is in no way qualified for political office. The only reason they know who they are is because they were on TV, I guess. And we expect now that those candidates are gonna do very well, because why would we have any higher expectations for the American people? And yet he's not doing well, so that feels kind of nice after the last few years too. There's a lot to like in this race. I'll agree with you on that.
Totally. All right, let's do one final story, not a positive one, but it involves electoral politics over in Florida. Let's do it.